Hello everyone, this is Persephone, and in this video I want to share with you what happened during these 2 months that I was absent from YouTube. I spent 1 month in the hospital. I was critically ill, and if I wasn't hospitalized and the doctors there weren't capable, I would 100% be dead today. This video is going to contain extremely graphic details of abuse, mental, medical, financial, many types that you can imagine. So if you're sensitive and you don't want to listen to it, I totally understand. Just know that I was very ill, but now I'm okay and recovering, so there is nothing to worry about now. If you do want to watch it, trigger warning, just step away if you feel uncomfortable. I don't want to show my full face because I don't want to wear makeup. I will explain why, and I don't feel confident that I look good, so I'm just showing part of myself. I'm sorry for that. And one last thing that I want to clarify, the people that I decided I'm no contact with in the past, my resolve remains. So the last time I had a medical update, there was a really awful person who used that as leverage to try to harass me on my business on many vids by buying items and demanding medical updates, pretending that they care. So I want to remind you that just because someone chooses to go public about health matters or private matters, that doesn't mean that anyone else is entitled to private updates. I want to be fair towards all my fans and the people who take time to watch me, so whatever I share is going to be only public. If someone else who still has my email for whatever reason, like my personal email, just chooses to contact me, I'm not going to respond. And to people who I've explicitly told that I don't want to be in contact with, I'm never going to be in contact with you again, so please move on. So what happened? I have said this to some of my fans on OnlyFans. I'm sorry for not updating. I will update everything massively now that I'm much better. Originally, it all started that I was diagnosed with a case of the you-know-what virus that causes acute demonetization to YouTube channels if it's mentioned. So we all know what do you do in those cases: self-isolation, taking it easy, and so on. The problem with me after that routine test that I had to take is that I started to have gastrointestinal symptoms of gastroenteritis. Imagine like food poisoning, but very bad. And okay, I'm going to be describing some disgusting things in this video with a lot of, let's say, diarrhea, to put it plainly, and fever and exhaustion and like vomiting tendencies, all of that stuff. So I went to an excellent doctor who is near my house, who told me that there is a chance that I have what you call a digestive case of the virus that must not be named. I wasn't even aware that there is a digestive case. I thought it's only like in your respiratory system. So the doctor told me to take it easy and gave me some like dietary advice, and he said that if I need anything else, to call him. The problem is that soon after that, I started having multiple times of having to use the bathroom during the day, like 10, 15, 20, and I started feeling progressively worse, and I had huge dark circles under my eyes and dry mouth. So I contacted the doctor again, and he said that I'm showing signs of dehydration, so I need to go to a hospital to get IV fluids because whatever I was drinking, I couldn't keep it down. And here is when I made my first major mistake that, looking back, I couldn't have known, but at the time it seemed like the right choice. There is a nearby health center where I am, like a small hospital that it's on walking distance, and I've never been there before, so I thought, okay, I'm just dehydrated, they're just going to put me in isolation, give me IV fluids. I have a strong immune system. I actually have problems of autoimmunity, like my immune system being way too strong and attacking my body. So I was thinking, I don't need to go to any like fancy private hospital or stuff. I'm just going to go there. And I went there, and if I stayed there, I would be dead by how ignorant these people were. So I decided to not press charges, although in the future that may change. I went there, they put me in right away, and they started giving me what I thought was IV fluids. And it was not just IV fluids, no one told me that. They actually contained massive amounts of antibiotics that treat gastroenteritis and some other stuff, because in their mind I had gastroenteritis for some reason. Although I told them about the virus test that was positive, they didn't care about that. Here's the thing: if you take massive amounts of antibiotics, you are in danger of getting an infection from Clostridium difficile. If you say, what the hell is that? It's a bacterium that exists, and it can have an overgrowth in your intestines caused by antibiotics. So you're going to say, okay, Persephone, you are already in the hospital and this happens, so what's the problem? I'm just going to treat you, right? This causes internal bleeding, massive internal bleeding. When I say internal bleeding, it means going to the toilet and you feel like you're peeing and it comes in from the other side and it's actually blood. So I started having at first diarrhea with blood, then more blood, and then imagine going to the hospital and being in the toilet in your own room and leaving blood every time, like a pool of blood. Imagine, I don't know, like bleeding from a bullet. I don't know how to describe it. Girls see more blood than boys, so I can't say that I was too fazed by the blood, but I was very scared of the way they treated me, that they kept giving me antibiotics. They didn't run any other tests, in x-ray only, and they checked my heart, and they were extremely abusive. Like during the night, if I needed something, there was a shortage in the nurses and the hospital, so they were very rude. And towards the end, I started to feel that I'm feeling so much worse and no one cares. So I decided to get discharged, to sign to get discharged, although they were extremely against it. I almost had to run away and they said that if you do it, we're going to call the police. So I somehow convinced them and I went back to my doctor, who decided to run a blood test, and I was so anemic, I had lost so much blood that my doctor said he's severely worried, and he changed my meds and he said self-isolate for 1 more day, and then the next day we're going to run more blood tests, and if this continues and you're feeling bad, we're going to get you hospitalized again, but not in that hospital. So because I really trust the doctor, he has a PhD and he's a good person basically. Like he would also call me by himself, and he would have like his people working for him in his small clinic to call me. And when I say clinic, he doesn't allow patients to stay overnight, but they do almost everything else. Small practice is a better word in English, I think. So the next day I go to get my blood test, and then something really scary happened. Then I collapsed on the floor. I don't really remember much. I remember it was raining. I remember feeling that I'm going to faint, that everything turns black, I'm losing consciousness. And then when I woke up, I had an IV in my hand, and the doctor said, don't worry, you are going to need a blood transfusion. You have lost way too much blood. And I was bleeding on the floor, guys, like practically. So he said we contacted the military hospital, and the reason for that is because I come from a family with many people in the military, and when you're a member of these families, you're automatically part of their insurance. And they said the ambulance from the military hospital is on their way. And then my heart sank. I was thinking, this can't be happening. Not anywhere, but not the military hospital. I can't just meet any other hospital. There are two problems with the military hospital. Okay, I'm going to start from the positive things. The positive is that the people there are very highly trained. They have a very high percentage of saving people. You're going to say, great, why don't you want to go there? Are you crazy? The other problem is that everyone there is pretty much nuts. I'm going to explain what happened and you'll understand why. And that if you go there, you stay for months. My father, who also has autoimmune conditions, he goes for 3 days and he gets out after at least 2 months. I kid you not. They have the system where the hospital is huge, they have way too many empty beds, insurance pays for everything, and most of the people there are extremely ambitious. They want to have a medical career, so they don't want you dying. So they lock you in the room and they get you out once you are 100% healthy or dead. In the meantime, you don't get discharged. So I was thinking, I'm going to be there for months. I didn't have time to think about that. The ambulance had already taken me. They took me on the ER. On the ER, they had freaked out. This time I was more prepared. I had my medical files printed with my previous history and the autoimmune condition I already have that I cannot mention because it's going to dox my father. It's super rare, unfortunately. Let's just say I already have one autoimmune condition. They knew that. So on the ER, the people there are seriously nuts. By nuts, I mean they decided to take my vitals every 15 minutes, night and day, because they felt that my condition is very serious. So at first, good news is that they said you are technically a gastroenterology patient since you have Clostridium difficile in your intestines. They did a test and they found it too, but we're going to put you in the pathology department and you're going to have your own room. And I don't mind being with other people in the room with one more lady, but I was thinking I need to use the bathroom every 10 minutes to get out all the blood out of my system because I was still bleeding like a fountain and I had high fever. So I was thinking they're giving me my own room because usually 2 patients share a bathroom and they don't want me to inconvenience someone else. and they put me into this super fancy room. I'm not bragging, you're going to see why I say these things, I have a point. They put me into the super fancy room, it looked like a 4-star hotel, like your own bathroom with huge windows and wide and sunny and everything. And I was thinking, I asked like, how much does this cost like per day? I mean, it looks like I'm staying here. They said, don't worry, the insurance covers it, and even if it doesn't, you're staying here, you don't have to pay anything. Oh, okay. They told me, tell your family to bring you like pajamas and stuff and panties and everything, because you're staying a long time, like you're very sick. I'm like, okay, I stay there, still have my electronics, and they start running tests. And then the doctor comes and he says, you're dying, like blood transfusion now. As the other hospital and the doctor, like the other hospital didn't really know it, but my doctor did. So the first problem is that my blood type is A negative. They had a little bit of that blood, not a lot. So I've never done a blood transfusion before. I mean, not awake. I've done during surgeries, and it's extremely annoying because you have to stay completely still. You can't eat, you can't drink. It takes so many hours, and honestly, the blood is disgusting. And I'm a tough person. I was thinking, okay, you have to endure, cooperate with them the best you can to survive and get out fast. I wasn't sleeping. Every 10 to 15 minutes would come someone would come in to take my blood pressure, check my vitals, check my oxygen, and they would take small amounts of blood, maybe 10 times a day, 15 times a day, and then they would say, wow, you look so bad, you never sleep, why don't you sleep? It took me at least 3 to 4 days to get used to the fact that there were people like constantly touching me when I was sleeping and remain asleep. The first 3 to 4 days I didn't sleep. The other thing is I became 42 kg. When I was 52, I lost 10 kg in there because they weren't feeding me, because the diarrhea wasn't stopping, the bleeding wasn't stopping, and there were literally 5 gastroenterologists coming into my room. The youngest, who was like a guy in his late 30s, they had me appointed to him. And the oldest was like in his late 50s. And there was one crazy guy, like around 40s, that he would come to me and would say, do you know how stressed we are? Like the entire gastroenterology department is stressed because of you. And I would say to him, like, doctor, I don't want to stress anyone. Like, I want to get better. So I don't know, I'm sorry you're stressed. What can I do? Then I started having extreme gut pain. Like when I say extreme, I'm talking about screaming. And I'm a person that I've done stitches without anesthesia. Like I don't scream usually. They didn't know why. And they would give me IV painkillers that they would make me pass out to not feel pain. So after that, they said, no food for that patient, only IV fluids to stop the diarrhea and the bleeding. And it wasn't stopping. And I started to really be afraid that I'm going to die. Like it started to cross my mind because something else happened that was extremely creepy. Here is where things will get very creepy. If you reach this far, buckle up with me. So one nurse comes, and I wanted a second pillow. So she comes with a male nurse. During that time, I had become so weak, I couldn't use the bathroom by myself. Someone had to take me. I couldn't dress. I was sweating like a pig from the fever, and strangers had to take off my clothes and dress me up, which you're going to say, okay, you filmed so much adult content. Like, why is that? Like, okay, people see you naked. The entire internet has seen you naked on OnlyFans and on many videos. Who cares? It's because I had so much abuse in my life, including medical sexual abuse that my mother initiated. That's a topic for another video, that I didn't really feel comfortable with people removing my clothes forcibly to put on other clothes, but of course no one was asking me, and I just had to endure it even if I was too triggered. I had people, like, I was begging people for water, like 1 sip of water, and they wouldn't give me, or for ice, for anything. And they would say that the fluids are enough. They are not. Your body feels like, your mouth feels like a desert, like you have sand. After like me begging for I don't know how many hours, they would bring me like 1 sip of water, 1 tiny cup, and I would have to spit it. It's pretty much very similar to being in jail, but also with medical abuse involved. So I needed a second pillow at some point, and I asked the nurse, and the other male nurse asks her, like, is that the pillow of the person who died? Did you change it? Because they were opening the closet to give me a second pillow. And this is like, I think we changed it yesterday when they died. And I'm like, what? Am I having the room of someone who died? And they said, oh yeah, they died 3 hours ago on your bed, but we changed the seats, don't worry. And that was like very, how to say it, creepy that someone died in your room. I tried to ignore it, but then because I have an analytical brain, because of autism, I started to notice other things. One thing that I noticed is that there was a very big corridor where I was in, and it was me and some other patients, and Everyone else but me was at least 90 to 95 years old. I kid you not. There were people who were, I don't say this in an ageist way, not at all. I mean, of course not, I'm the last person to be ageist, but it was concerning that there wasn't any other relatively young or young patient. Like, for example, there was a guy nearby next to me that I kind of knew some things about him because we went for an MRI together. Because my pain wasn't going away, they decided to do MRI scans to see what's wrong with my gut. So he was ahead of me in the MRI with his nurse, and I was with my nurse on a wheelchair. And he started saying to his nurse, who was like a much older guy, I don't need an MRI. I'm 96 years old. I've survived 2 world wars. Let's go back. You should just like rub me with some Chinese ointment, my like herbal medication, Eastern medication ointment my wife brought. Let's go. And the male nurse would say, we can't go. The doctor ordered it. We have to do a second MRI. And then the 96-year-old guy would get mad and he would say, what do you do to youngsters? No, I've survived 2 world wars. And when I say don't need an MRI, I don't need an MRI. And the nurse was trying to talk to him and say, look, I didn't sleep 1 second because of you complaining all night. I'm going to rub you with whatever you want. Just wait for the MRI. And then the elder would get mad and he would say, you know, I can't stand you here. Everyone is rude. You don't respect elders. I'm just going to get well and leave and never see you again. And then the nurse told him, we don't want to keep you here as company either, you know, yeah, get well. So I realized that I'm not in the pathology department because they don't have beds in the gastroenterology department. I'm in the department where they're waiting for people to die. So it's the people who are 96 years old, and as much as I don't want them to die, I mean, at 96 you consider that scenario, and then it was just me. So that really kind of started to shake me a little bit, that why am I not with any, and I'm in my own room where they put the one person who has the chances to die the most, right? Room 222, like a horror movie. So we do the MRI and the results come out, and I'm going to say the first thing that they said is pancolitis. If you say what the hell is pancolitis, your wounds are like, your entire intestine is full of wounds. And that comes with a bunch of diagnoses for your digestive system that none of them is good. So all of these wounds are bleeding, and then there is the Clostridium that is still in my system creating more wounds. Pancolitis is a second autoimmune, by the way. So we go back, the doctor says, again, not even water for that patient. At this point, I knew it. So they tell me, look, we're going to have to heal the Clostridium with antibiotics again, and then we're going to have to put you on an autoimmune protocol with immunosuppressant. I had taken something like that in the past with prednisone when I was like a kid, but now it's going to be much, much stronger, and it's going to have bioagents too. I didn't even know what bioagents were. So they get me back into the room, and then there comes a doctor and he says, I want to take biopsies. So they assign me for a colonoscopy, and then I'm going to describe some other extremely medical and sexual abuse, if you ask me. That the nurse comes and she says, I have to give you an enema, and I have to watch you after the enema to see what comes out of you know where, to report to the doctor and take samples. And I'm like, there's nobody that is going to watch me do that. Like, I don't poop in front of people. Not that I had anything to poop, I had still blood, but I don't do that in front of people. Like, can you give me some privacy? Let's just say for many of the things that I wanted to do, there wasn't any privacy. Let's just say that there was a lot of screaming, a lot of forcing. And by the time I went for the colonoscopy, I was in such a bad mental condition because I would have attacked this woman. Like, there's no way I would be one of those patients who cooperate and just let you undress them and give them an enema. I wouldn't have that done to me. But when you haven't eaten for, like, at this point, I don't know, maybe 19 days, it's very easy for people to just restrain you, and they would threaten me and say, we'll tie you to the bed if you don't cooperate, like we did to the other guy who was 96, because he didn't want to do the MRI until the end, so they strapped him in the bed like a mentally ill patient. So, long story short, when I went to the colonoscopy section, the doctor took one look at me, and the anesthesiologist said, put her under general anesthesia because she's having kind of like, she's in very bad condition. She's going to be moving. So I was sleeping for 2 days after that. I don't know how much they dragged me, but I didn't mind. At least I didn't know when they were coming to check my blood. So the horror continues. I go back. They said the first blood transfusion failed, that I'm still extremely anemic and I don't have enough oxygen in my blood. So they're looking for a second one and they don't have my blood type in the hospital because A negative is apparently extremely rare. So they were giving me plasma and some other things, searching for blood, and then they had the amazing idea to contact my family. I was extremely apprehensive of that because first of all, no one alive in my family has A negative, and because also I didn't want them to know. So here is where the second part of the drama starts. During the time that I was fighting for my life in the hospital, my mother, that she has multiple lawsuits in her job because she has been sued for abusing her employees at the workplace, actually got convicted and she got a suspended sentence in jail for 15 months. Which, if you ask me, it was way too lenient given the fact that if you want to know how she's behaving, I recommend the book Snakes in Suits that describes narcissists in the workplace. My mother is a narcissist, she's a narcissist at home, she became a narcissist in the workplace. So they contact my father, and he is, I'm going to tell you guys, I thought I have been through abuse in my life. I haven't been through anything. I had a blessed life until now because he became the most abusive monster to ever exist. First of all, he started telling me that you have cancer and they're hiding it from you because they only give MRIs to people who have cancer, which is completely medically wrong and stupid. And trust me, if they had even the slightest doubt that I had cancer, they would have told me. I mean, they're the same people who told me, we don't have blood, you're going to die, you're stressing us because we don't want dead people in our hospital. Do you think these unhinged people would say, oh, you may have a tumor, we're searching for me? They wouldn't care. So, even if they are hiding it, why do you say that to someone who hasn't eaten in 19 days and is probably dying and yelling at them? How can you be so stupid and you don't know that they're hiding from you? And I said also they don't give me any anti-cancer medication. They give me other stuff. You don't give antibiotics to cancer. So he would start screaming that I have cancer. And then, I don't know what happened in his defective brain. And I say defective because, guys, okay, I'm just going to I'm losing my words. I don't want to edit this video. I want to put it as it is unfiltered. If Christianity was real, because I had left Christianity, but starting now, I have a very negative opinion, God would have stricken my father with a thunder that day. Sometimes some things you just don't do, they're too blasphemous to do. He started saying, oh, you have pancolitis? Okay, well, you have to support your mother going through a lot of stuff. Have you seen this meme where there is this hot guy who plays Loki and he says, oh, that's very sad in one picture, and then he says, oh yeah, well, and he starts talking about something else. This is how he treated what I've been through. Oh, you have pancolitis? Oh, too bad. Well, your mother has divorced, you got a suspended sentence. And then he says, your mother wants to talk to you. And I assume that my centipede of a mother, this creature that is not human, I'm telling you this with zero hate. I believe there are things among us, things, not people, that they are not human and they walk around in human skin, pretending to be human and failing. I thought she's going to say some at least typical things that we say to someone who is dying, that how are you, do you need anything, even the platitudes people say. She had me on the phone for 70 minutes. I kid you not, 70 minutes. She didn't ask me a single thing about myself, and she was complaining about her job. She was complaining how dare these subhumans accuse her, how dare they give her a sentence. She was bashing her employees. She was bashing the justice system, typical narcissist stuff that nothing is her fault. So I find something that it really made me I'm not one to say curse them, but if they die from now on, I'm going to be happy as hard as that sounds. They don't exist. They don't exist for me. She said, I was diagnosed with the same autoimmune in 2004. And apparently there is a silent form of that second autoimmune that if one member in your family has it, you have to start doing a colonoscopy starting in your early 20s every 3 years because it's silently progressing. That's the medical protocol. And I'm a person that I take health very seriously. If I knew she has even one autoimmune, I would have gone and done that colonoscopy. I mean, you just go to any hospital, pay, and you do it. And I wouldn't have to go through any of that. I didn't know my own medical history. See, he did. So far, I only knew, and I've only talked to this channel if you look at my older videos, about my father having autoimmune illnesses. It's the first time I hear her having an autoimmune illness. And when I told her, why the hell didn't you tell me? Because this is important. If you have a relative that has autoimmune problems in their gut, the chances of you having it when it's a first degree relative practically skyrocket. You need prevention. So one of the reasons I'm making this video is I'm telling you guys, don't be like me. Check the medical history of your first degree relatives, and if you needed just do a colonoscopy. I was very, not exactly afraid only, but disgusted and scared of the process of someone putting a camera from your colon, but they can just knock you out with general anesthesia. I didn't know anything, it didn't hurt, even the biopsies didn't hurt. After that, they just give you painkillers and you're fine. So I was furious. I was like, why didn't you tell me? And then I told her, how are you going to take responsibility for this? That you have responsibility for not telling me, for hiding me this information about our medical history. You should have told me. And then she told me, it's your personality. You're so you're a person who gets easily stressed. Then I started telling her, I get easily stressed. When you are torturing me and dragging me to the children's contest to make me your money-making machine, to pocket money, to buy alcohol and Xanax, you had nothing to do with it. So anyway, I'm not going to make this too long about here. My father takes the phone and then he starts yelling at me and saying that I'm ungrateful, I'm just a parasite. I'm going to tell you word by word what he called me, okay? Abuse, trigger warning. I'm just a parasite, I'm ungrateful, I'm a loser because other people have 100,000 YouTubers, 100,000 subscribers, and I don't. I have been living rent-free in his house and he should have kicked me out a long time ago. And I was staying calm at first, and then I asked him, so you really think that all of the abuse that my mother inflicted on me and the fact that she hid the information that she has a genetically passed down, extremely dangerous autoimmune condition, she probably takes medication about it in secret even now. So all of that, they don't mean anything to you. And he said, you should have been supporting her. Then I just fucking started to lose it. I'm sorry for cursing. I said, I haven't eaten in 90 days. I am going to the bathroom to actually get blood out of my body still 20 times a day. I'm getting blood transfusions, and I'm the one that I have to support her for getting sued, for being a monster in the workplace. I said she got what she deserved. She should be happy the actual conviction was light and it was a suspended sentence because she should have been in jail. And then he started yelling at me. And he started saying that I'm not going to give you any money and I'm not going to pay for anything of the stuff that I have to pay for your hospice. And then I told him, so how exactly is he going to take responsibility with lip service? Because I don't need his money. I have my own money, and that pisses him off. So then he started saying that it's your fault that this happened and you are using your condition as an excuse to not support your mother. And then I had put him on speaker because I had 3 IVs and I couldn't move my hands. And then if I learned one thing by dating Asian men, is the whole process of disowning when the Asian mother-in-law says, I have no son, you know my son, every week. But I've never done that in my life. And I told him very calmly, listen to me, you have no daughter, starting today, I don't know you, I don't want to hear from you ever again. And if you dare call me even one more time to call me a parasite or anything crazy like that, I said, I can't even get on the wheelchair right now. I said, I can't. I need someone to, thank God for the male nurses. I need someone to lift me and put me on the wheelchair. But once I'm able to lift myself and wheel myself out of here, I'm going to go to the press, to the local press in your town and even anywhere else and make a video saying that my mother was lying that I'm pregnant when I was a child and she would pay doctors to do sexually abusive exams on me, and it is sexually abusive when you cannot consent, and a myriad of other sexually abusive things and incestuous things, not just emotional incest, a bunch of inappropriate things that they are topics for other videos, and you knew it and you covered from it. And I said, I'm going to say your name, my name, and the press is just going to love this story, and everyone in the town who knows you, because my father is known in the town, is going to love this story. So I said, if you talk to me ever again, I said, you shouldn't talk to me because I don't know you, I have no father anymore, I disown you. Then I said, your life is going to be ruined. And if you say I'm going to find you and kill you, I would say, come find me and kill me if you dare. If you can pass the gate in the military hospital. I'm going to inform people that the lunatic is going to come to kill me and the soldiers in the gate will stop you. Do you know what happened? And then I hung up on his face. He sent me $1,000 the other day that I blocked. That's what happened. That's what you have to do with people like that, people in quote unquote. So after that, because he was yelling, The nurse came and she said, no electronic because you're disturbing yourself and the other patients. And after that, they took my laptop, they took my phone. For a month, if I was in jail, then I became solitary. Like in jail, in solitary confinement, which is jail inside jail, when you are in the room locked up and you don't have anything and you can't talk to anyone. I was staring at the ceiling for literally 1 month because of him. And this is something I'm never going to forgive him for. So after that, they kept giving me different medications. And then they said that they have to start the immunosuppressants. And at this point, I started to feel many emotions that I couldn't feel before. Like one of them was guilt, that the people in the same department as me all had very serious conditions. And my condition was kind of a bullshit. Like when people ask, I don't say that to reduce the pain of anyone with an autoimmune condition, but for me, like there was a woman whose son had bone necrosis and they had conditions like that. And me, it's like, okay, my immune system has gone wrong and it's attacking myself. I felt like, why? Why am I having this stupid problem that didn't even exist 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago? And I was sitting there and I was re-examining my choices in life. And I started to get so angry and so hungry because I also started to get better from the immunosuppressants and I started to feel extreme hunger. And there were times where I was actually crying from the hunger, like crying in silence. And they would see me and they would come. I wouldn't cry in front of them. They would come to the room and they would abuse me verbally. They would say, why do we always see you crying? You have to be stronger. Just lift yourself up. What are you doing? Both the nurses and the doctors. And there was so much verbal abuse. And I asked to see a psychiatrist. I said, don't you think I need some psychological support for what I'm going through? And they didn't do it, although I requested it. I don't know why. And then after 2 or 3 days, I get up and I start coughing and I start to feel that I can't breathe all of a sudden. And I tell my nurse and she ignores me. She says it's just from the stress because you're crying all the time and you're depressed all the time. And during the night, around midnight, I started to feel that I really can't breathe. And there was a doctor, a young female intern doctor. And when I told her, because the gastroenterologist that was extremely concerned about me, I mean, he was a bit excessive, but I thank him for that. He had given her very strict instructions that the patient on 222 is about to kick the bucket any moment and you have to keep your life. So the moment I said to the doctor, I can't breathe, they sent me for an x-ray like the same second around 1 a.m. and it was so cold. They had no heating system in the x-rays and you have to be naked in front of strangers men you don't know again. So they said you start having fluid in your lungs that we don't know where it came from. So she said, I'm not a gastroenterologist, I don't know where it came from. I'm just going to put you on oxygen support because you truly can't breathe and the oxygen in your blood is really low. So they transferred me to another place with oxygen support and I start to hallucinate. I don't know if it was a combination of the immunosuppressants or lack of oxygen, probably the lack of oxygen, but I was hallucinating for at least a week. And I come from a family with many schizophrenics, like I'm familiar with other people describing hallucinations to me, but I've never had them myself. So usually my hallucinations were something like, it wasn't seeing like Alexander the Great or Napoleon or monsters. I would usually see nurses that weren't there or doctors that weren't there that I would know this is not a real nurse because probably their face would be kind of grotesque or they would say things that they made no sense medically or they would sit next to my bed and fight me and complain. So after some point, I started to realize after 5 or 10 minutes that, oh, this person isn't real, it must be a hallucination, and I would stop talking to them. Sometimes I would talk to them and the nurse would come in and I would tell her and she would just turn on the oxygen more or check my vitals again. And they sent me for a second MRI and then they said that because of the autoimmune, my body is breaking down proteins and then some people who are infected with Clostridium apparently have massive protein destruction. So the levels of the fluid kept rising. And then they said, we have to bring other specialists because this is not gastroenterology, this is in your lungs. And people who were pretty much, I don't know if they were immunologists or they were some kind of other specialist, but they came into my room and they stabbed me in the ribs to take fluid from my lungs without anesthesia. It was the first time in like 20 days that they said, we're going to bring you some soup, some food, and I was so happy. And the moment they brought the soup, 2 doctors come in and one doctor says, don't eat for a second, we have to take a sample. And I was thinking, okay, a blood sample. And they lift my shirt in the ribs and they just stabbed me with a huge needle. And I was thinking, like, are these people gangsters? Like, what is this? No consent, no anesthesia, not even local anesthesia, just like boom. And then they said that my body, the walls of my gut are thinning, and whatever comes out of it, like toxins, fluids, whatever, is attacking my other organs. And then the younger gastroenterologist started saying that I'm going to have a heart attack. I don't know where he concluded that from, but the next day at 8 a.m., practically, I don't know if they woke up the cardiologist, the main cardiologist. I mean, there wasn't only one doctor in one department, but it's always the head doctor, the most experienced. I'm telling you guys, this doctor thought we are all nuts, both me and the other doctors, because before even he took his coat off to put the lab coat on and start his day, they were waiting with me. I had 2 nurses with me. I was on a wheelchair. I had an oxygen mask and a tank of oxygen. I had a wool blanket, although I was sweating like a pig, and both nurses were asking me, are you feeling okay? Are you feeling okay? Can you breathe? And I still couldn't breathe. So he was asking, like, what is going on here? And they said that they sent us from the, like, as an emergency case, her heart. So he was like, okay, let me do a heart ultrasound to see your heart. And he told me, no, you have an incredibly strong heart. You're very healthy. Why are you here? So he wrote a 2-page note on his computer that there is nothing wrong with my heart and there is no fluid in my heart and I'm most certainly not dying from an upcoming heart attack, and he sent it back. And when he got the rest of my medical file, he told me that there are people that the fluids reach the pericardium, like the sac that surrounds the heart, and they die, but you don't have that. Of course, the gastroenterologist told me if you were overweight, if you were drinking alcohol, and if you were taking drugs, you would be dead. They would remind me, if this happens, you will be dead maybe 10 times a day. Someone will come to the room to discuss either my upcoming death or some possibility of death that somehow we avoided, like barely escaping. Then there was someone else that died in the other room. They were taking the dead body out. I had to see all of that. But if you're crying or if you're starving or if you're depressed, people are saying, this is the military. Toughen up. And you come from a military family. If this was World War III, what would you do? Honestly, if this was World War III, I would be dead because there would be no immunosuppressant. So when people say that, like something like that to encourage you, it's like, you think, is this kind of stupid, but you can't say anything. Long story short, the people who came to examine my lungs, the doctors, started fighting the gastroenterologist about the fact that I wasn't eating. And I was very grateful to them because they were saying, one doctor was fighting the gastroenterologist outside my room and I could hear everything they were saying. And if I wasn't dying, it would be kind of funny. The doctor was saying, the patient is a skeleton, she has to eat, she can't fight the Clostridium without food, she can't find the infection in her lungs without food, you have to feed her. And the gastroenterologist was saying, we barely stopped the bleeding and the diarrhea. If she starts bleeding and she bleeds to death, and we barely found a second blood, vial to give her a transfusion, if she dies from bleeding to death, will you take the responsibility? And the other doctor would respond, and if she dies from starvation and malnutrition, will you take responsibility? And they kept fighting, so they compromised to bring me like a little bit of chicken with soup, and I was like, oh my god, food after, I don't know, almost a month. So the days kept passing, and after some point they couldn't discharge me because I was too thin and too weak. And then they started asking me a bunch of extremely invasive and rude, in my opinion, questions. They started asking me, were you taking cocaine before you came here? Why are you so thin? Are you anorexic? Do you have an eating disorder? And then I would say they haven't fed me in 19 days. Like, I was 52 kg when I came here, which is not a lot, but I'm 5'2". That's, for me, that's fine. It's considered healthy weight. So they wouldn't believe me, and then they would say, wow, the patient is so thin. Did you search his stuff for drugs? And they would search my stuff for drugs, the nurses, like my bag, and they would say, I don't have any drugs, I've never taken drugs, I don't do cocaine, and even if I did the drugs, I would most certainly not carry the drugs in the hospital. And it was so abusive. Meanwhile, my parents tried to call me, but at this point, they have been so rude and so crazy that even the nurses knew, and they would say, we can't say anything to you, it's the medical privacy of the patient. So eventually, after the extremely strong immunosuppressants, I started to have a rapid recovery, rapid compared to what they expected, which was for me to stay there for 6 months, I guess. And then they told me that probably I'm going to get discharged in 3 or 4 days and to prepare myself. One thing that was very problematic, okay, the worst part of this video is over, now we go to the better part, is that when you have all of these gut autoimmune diagnoses and illnesses, they want to put you on a diet that is honestly awful. they start saying things like, by the way, I'm not a medical health professional. I'm just going to tell you what I did and what I do. And you should always consult your doctor if you have this condition or if you have autoimmune problems. Okay, what I say is not general advice. It's just my personal experience and my personal choice. So they started saying that I have to avoid a huge list of foods like no dairy, no fruit, no vegetables, and I have to eat either meat with potatoes or chicken with pasta for I don't know how many months. And I was thinking, this is not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to do that. So I was eating whatever they were giving me at the hospital. I would have to eat like practically jello, again, soup or rice, and the same things over and over, zero vegetables. One time when I begged them, they gave me some boiled zucchini, like 2 or 3 bites, and that was it. So after that, there was one doctor who told me that he had Hashimoto's, which is another problematic autoimmune condition, and he introduced me to practically a community of people who use food to heal and keep their autoimmunes in remission. And the first thing that happens when I usually tell people about what happened to me is, oh my God, your diet must have changed drastically. I'm going to tell you my diet is now 95% of what it used to be. And it hasn't changed drastically because, first of all, I was eating mostly clean, like 90 to 95% clean before this happened. So it's not like I had to cut down alcohol or sweets or takeout because I wasn't eating any of that. But it seems that I wasn't eating enough protein. So there were people who swear on the carnivore diet. For me, I can't really follow that, or not yet at least. But when I went home with the gastroenterologist behind me saying, do one mistake, don't do what we said, and you will be here for another 2 months. Threatening me. So I go home, and the first week I was pretty scared. So I was eating the chicken with pasta and the meat with potatoes. And then I was thinking, should I try to alter the diet a bit by myself and start doing this diet that is extremely high protein, very low carbs, and some healthy fat? And I wasn't deciding it, and I had so much pain every day, and I had used the bathroom multiple times a day. I didn't have blood anymore. They killed the Clostridium, thank God. And there was one day when I was cooking chicken with pasta, and I cooked the chicken first, and then I think I forgot to add the pasta, and I was so hungry that I said I'm just going to eat plain chicken, nothing else. And I ate it, and then I felt so much better. Like I ate almost an entire tray of chicken by myself. And then I said, you know something, I'm just going to trust my instinct, and I started eating not exactly carnivore, but 85% carnivore by myself. Like I would wake up and I would eat beef for breakfast, just beef, or just beef with butter, or just beef with butter and probably some boiled zucchini, nothing else. And people would say, you are crazy, who eats that for breakfast? And I did that for 2 weeks, and then in the time that I had to go to the hospital to be checked again, because I have to be going to the hospital now all the time for checkups, at least every 2 weeks, and to get more immunosuppressants, they said, oh my God, your markers improved, your iron is higher. Oh wow, the immunosuppressants must be working well. It wasn't the immunosuppressants, it was the diet. And now they lowered my immunosuppressants, and then they sent me back home. And after that, I became bolder, and I started to think, what if I start eating foods that, like, I continue what I do, like beef all the time, chicken all the time, extremely low to almost no pasta and carbs, but I want to add some foods that my body is craving. So I said, I'm just going to drink some apple juice, because they said apples are okay, you can start adding some fruit, and they were saying no juice. And I started adding 2 or 3 tablespoons of these foods and seeing how do I feel, and with few exceptions that they really gave me a bad stomach, the others were fine. So I go in the hospital again after a few days, and they say that, oh my God, you're doing fine. How is that possible? So during that time, I get a call from my father. My father also has multiple phones. Like, I don't know why every dysfunctional person that I know has multiple Reddit accounts, multiple phones, multiple Kakao Talks, multiple whatever, but they all do that. So he started saying that, he pretended he didn't say the horrible things that I said. He pretended that I didn't disown him. I didn't have the energy, like I stopped taking him seriously after that. I was like, okay, as long as I still stay in your apartment, that I plan to move now, but as long as I'm still here, okay, I'm going to pick up the phone. I don't want you to start more drama. So I was like, okay, what do you want? And he was saying, oh, oh, you are going, stupid platitudes like, oh, you're going to be okay. And I told him, you don't know that. You don't know that. Like, the doctors are telling me you are still, like, you barely escaped death. I had a near-death experience. So how do you say, you know, I know you're going to be okay? And then he made the mistake, and I made the mistake because he said, your mother wants to talk to you. That is the last time I'm going to talk to this. I'm not going to insert the worst curse word you can think of in my entire life. And if you say, since your mother don't curse here, I'm going to tell you what she said to me on the phone, and you're going to curse here without me having to do anything. So she started saying, oh, you have 2 autoimmune conditions now. Did you know that if you have 2 autoimmune conditions, the chance of getting another one skyrockets? Did you know that many people end up having the entire colon removed after pancreatitis, and they have a colostomy bag? Did you know that? And she would say that exactly how I mimic her. And then she would say, oh, I know several people who have diarrhea so many times every day, and they have cramps so many times every day that they can never leave the house again. Are you able to leave the house? She was happy, and she made no effort to hide it. She's sitting in her house cursing me and wishes that I get a colostomy bag. Wishes that I'm so ill that I never have to leave the house. I don't care if you're spiritual or not. For me, she's cursing me every second she can breathe. Actually, no. 50% of the time she's cursing the people who try to put her in jail, and I wish they succeed. And the other time she is cursing me. Personally, I wouldn't think of any less of any person who has a colostomy bag. And I wouldn't think anything bad for a person that they're too ill to leave the house no matter what their condition is. But when you hear someone saying that about you with a smile, I told my father, I still try to respect you because you make some effort, because you did pay for me to go to a private school and learn English, because of some things you did in my childhood. Like, I'm not completely ungrateful. I'm saying to you, once you die, you don't want to know what's going to happen, because I said, if someone told me you will come to have a colostomy bag, like it will happen really soon, ho, 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 and they laughed in my face like she does. YouTube doesn't allow us to say violence, but I would say, have you heard the noise of bones cracking? I don't know how I would stop myself. It would take a lot of self-control to not do anything that would be illegal, because like I said, there is rudeness, there is narcissism, there is abuse, and then there is pure blasphemy. You don't do that to someone, to anyone. You don't say, ho, 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 you're going to live with a colostomy bag for the rest of your life. By the way, I do not have a colostomy bag. There was no talk of a colostomy bag, but this is irrelevant. This is someone laughing at the prospect of someone having no colon. Like, I thought she is human. From now on, I'm going to be calling her the monster. That's what she is. She's no longer human to me. That is freaking monstrous. And then he started trying to excuse her, and he started saying things like, well, your mother is a victim of generational abuse. Your grandmother was very abusive towards her, and she was too weak, and she was incapable of breaking the circle. So what to do? She's weak. We all have to support her. That is utter bullcrap, because first of all, my grandmother raised me until I was almost 7 years old, from the time I was 20 days old to 7 years old, and I don't have any memories of abuse. And if my grandmother was so extremely abusive, I would have been abused too, because I was living with her every day of my life. Second, the fact that you have been abused doesn't give you any right to make no effort to improve and abuse others and wish them to have their colon removed. And third, and most importantly, it's no responsibility of mine to support anyone, especially someone who ended up with a suspended jail sentence out of their own literally crimes. She's a criminal. I'm ashamed to be related to her in any way. Eventually, I'm going to cut ties and disown and divorce her in every way possible. I heard the term divorcing your mother recently. I really like it. I'm getting a divorce from her. So I don't understand how it ended that, oh, she is the victim. Like, I'm literally dying. People, the head gastroenterologist was saying, you are stressing us, you're about to die, we're losing you. And you're calling me on the phone, you say you have to support your mother. What else am I supposed to do? If I die, are you going to go to my grave and say, become a ghost and come back to support her? So anyway, after that, I became very angry again. I had a relapse in my symptoms because of the anger. Then I had only myself to blame, of course. And I didn't want to make this video very long, but it's okay. I'm just going to share my plans for the future. I believe that since I was given literally a second chance to leave, I should use my time wisely, proactively, and better than before to do more things that will benefit myself and others. If even one person can benefit from the things that I share, then that's great. If not, I'm sorry, I do the best I can. The other thing is that I decided that I have to actually help more the fight against narcissists that many people like. I honestly think that as a society, as a world, we're very lenient against various types of narcissists. And I say that because I experienced narcissistic abuse when they hit people on the ground. So I have to make more content about that. Of course, the content that you enjoy, that is femdom and all of that stuff, will remain on Reventstar. And I'm only going to say that I feel that society is making us very depressed and very sick, and that there is a lot of extremely unhealthy advice. Because right now, these days, I'm drinking juice, I'm eating tomatoes, I'm eating pretty much anything that I want, and my symptoms are getting more and more in remission by the day, and it's not the immune suppressants. It's because I cut off all of the stuff that they tell you to eat that actually make you very sick. So a lot of things that people tell us to eat that they're supposedly healthy, like for example grains or lentils, they are actually slowly killing you. And I've experienced that firsthand, at least in my case. Like I said, I'm not a medical professional, don't take this as advice. I'm only going to say that I tried the conventional diet. I was miserable, hungry, lacking many nutrients, and I tried going almost carnivore and clean eating, and I'm getting better and better. So I think that we live in a society that really wants to make us sick, and I honestly think that most people are garbage. I went through various stages that I didn't want to share on YouTube until I got over them. I went through a stage of extreme misanthropy where I was hating people with so much hatred that I cannot even describe to you. I was thinking of the worst things, obviously not like break the law or do violence and stuff, but for example, when I would see the antinatalist community, that for me antinatalism is a form of acute narcissist, that the people would go there and say, oh, life is suffering. Life is suffering to you who are able-bodied. Have you asked people like me, or people who are way worse than me, who are like permanently like I was in that short time, that we are in hospital/jail, we can never leave the room, we can never even use the bathroom without someone looking, that we don't know if we're going to be alive tomorrow? I cannot describe the trauma, the humiliation, and the horror of not being able to lift your arms to change your shirt, that someone else has to do it. That you can't change your pants. There were times where people had to physically feed me at first. I couldn't feed myself. And I don't write this crap on Twitter, but you stay there able-bodied with mommy bank and daddy government, like providing for you. I know people who don't have a job and they constantly talk about buying jewelry on antinatalism communities and on depression communities, and they're so privileged. And it's not just like, it's not one race, it's not one age group, it's people from all over the world who honestly don't realize how good they have it. And I was so misanthropic. I was thinking, I wish something really bad happens to you, so you're in the hospital, like not to die, for 1 month or for 2, to get in my shoes for a bit, and then you won't have time for Twitter garbage. But then I realized, why should this experience turn me into such a hateful person like my mother? So I'm not going to wish ill upon strangers anymore. No, that was wrong. So I got over that pretty fast. Then I went through a stage of plotting how to expose my mother as much as possible and take her to jail and do whatever I can to make her suspended sentence, real sentence, not by framing her or anything, but just going to the police even now to say this person abused me, even in the hospital, what can I do? I want to press charges. Then I realized that I'm in a stage of recovery where that's not going to help me, and that she's going to have more ammunition to play the victim, so that didn't work either. So then I realized that actually not giving these fake humans what they want is the first step towards doing what needs to be done. And during that time, I had a lot of people, when I started working again on Nightflare, I had a lot of people asking me extremely stupid questions that I was so mad at them. Like, for example, one extremely stupid question on Nightflare is, are you doing cam shows? You're on a phone sex website, for fuck's sake. Why do you think I'm going to come here to do a cam show? If I want to do a cam show, are there plenty of campsites to do a cam show? But I want to see you. Yeah, and I want to date a dragon. Too bad, we all have things we can't have in life. Like, the level of stupidity of some people, I wonder, how do these people survive in America? How do they survive? Is the government giving them a welfare check for their fake disabilities? Do they parasitize on someone else? Like, so much crazy stuff. Or people saying, you know, where do you live? And if you don't want to tell them, they say, oh, I can tell you where I live. Why can't you tell me? Because you're a dude that nobody knows or cares about, and they're not going to stalk you like they do with digital sex workers. They're not going to abuse you. And also because even though you tell me some information about you, I don't have any responsibility to tell the same. So anyway, I told myself, get out of the spiral of negativity again, because I'm not going to allow third-party stupid people to make me someone that I'm not without my consent. The most important decision that I've made is I'm done with online friends. Literally every single online friend I tried to have in my life, not only they were a backstabbing snake, but also they're like cancer. Like, they never really leave. They always have your email. They always keep touch, try to keep touch with you, stalk you, send you unwanted stupid messages. And I'm very pro having friends, but unless I have the chance to meet someone in real life, I can be friendly with people online, but I'm not going to consider them friends anymore. Friendship has to be in real life, because I'm tired of narcissists scamming, lying, faking, and so on. And I honestly don't have time for a single how are you and where are you and what do you think about this conversation online. So I'm just going to tell you, if you watched this far, thank you for watching. It was cathartic to put all of this out. It was by far the worst thing that I've ever experienced, and not only because of the prospect of death. Like, I'm not actually afraid of death. I'm more afraid of permanent disability. I'm more afraid of having to constantly be abused in horrible ways and humiliated and powerless, not controlling your own body, like the disease controlling you, that you can't even decide to do anything or to eat anything. Starvation was also a big one. Like, I've never cried because I'm too hungry in my entire life, and I've spent the last, out of the 30 days, from day 10 to day 19, I was crying out of hunger. It was a very primal thing. I've never experienced that. I was crying until I didn't have tears, and they would come and try to give me pills for my stomach because it was hurting too much. And when I would tell them, give me some boiled rice or some soup or like anything, they would say the doctor said no. Okay. And then they would say you shouldn't be crying. And I was cursing these people inside me, and I was saying, if there is any God, I curse you to be like starved and restrained like I am, to see if you are going to be crying or not. Because for me that was probably the most inhumane, that you're not even allowed to cry alone in your room, that people expect you to be strong and positive and joke with them if they feel like saying a joke. That is freaking, like, whoever decided to do this, they should be punished somehow. I believe in a higher power. I don't believe in Christianity, but I believe there is a higher power, and I hope this higher power will punish them the way they deserve. That is way more cruel than anything that I can think of. Probably to go through the same. There was only one time when I responded to one nurse, kind of not exactly rudely, but I shamed her. I could tell she felt a lot of toxic shame, and I felt very good about that. Like, I have a kind of not exactly sadistic side. Like, I would never harm a child or an animal or an innocent person or a person I don't know. But if you try to harm me and I am in a bad mood, I'm going to do whatever I can to give you back what you gave me. So she started saying, you know, every time I see you, you look like you have been crying. So I suggest seeing a psychiatrist, which I requested and nobody came. And then I told her, you know something. On April 1, I collapsed. They thought I have gastroenteritis. On April 4, I am in the hospital. On April 7, they tell me you're going to die. On April 9, they say you have multiple autoimmune diseases now. Don't you think it's a little bit fast to process all of that trauma and come out of the other side smiling in 9 days? Because I said you're a nurse, you know some psychologists, so they say that being diagnosed with a lifelong condition possibly is very traumatic, collapsing is very traumatic, near-death experiences are very traumatic, so maybe that's why you see me crying, and also the fact that I'm on day 18 of forced starvation or something. And then she was like, oh. And then she was like, yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, then don't talk. How about saying nothing? Everyone and their uncle has some smart platitude to share with you when you have such a problem. It's so annoying or people trying to insert their own stories about illness that you don't want to hear. Like, I realize that honestly most people are garbage, and I don't say this with hate anymore. I just say it as a fact. For me, if someone is very ill, I'm going to say, I'm sorry to hear that. It's true, I'm sorry, I don't want anyone to tell me that they're dying. Second, you have every right to be upset. Validate them, especially if the news are recent, validate them. And then the next you can say is, what can I do for you? Is there any way I can support you if you truly want to support them? Or you can say, I can listen if you have something to share. Don't tell them that they shouldn't be crying. Don't tell them, like my father does, that you're going to be okay when no one has any idea if they're going to make it or not. Don't share your uncle's mother's best friend's dog story who had something similar and they took an herb from Tibetan monks and they became okay. Like, don't be a smart aleck in general, to not say anything worse. Just sit there. Sometimes I would appreciate, like, there were people that I would say, can we just sit and, I don't know, like sit and even not talk, listen to some music or talk about something else instead of making everything about illnesses and who died and who is fine and, oh my God, see the positive side of life, or who still has a colon and who had their colon removed. Like, something so simple people could not provide it. I realize most people are so underdeveloped. They live lives of trying to perpetually distract themselves from their own reality and from their own trauma to the point of psychosis. So I'm just going to say that I consider that in a kind of creepy way. The person that was before in the channel has kind of died. Like, some parts of me did die in that hospital. And I'm a person that I'm much more unhinged now. And to close this video, I told my father openly, I'm done with Christianity. Like, I had kind of left the faith, but it was kind of like a private thing. He didn't know. I told him, don't even bring up Christianity to me unless you want to bring up the Mosaic law. That I said, why doesn't God throw meteorites to kill my mother? Because when you say to someone, like I said, I'm really butthurt about that, you can say, that's why I keep bringing it up. When you say to someone, you're not going to have a colon, ho, 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 I want the meteorite to smash your head. We don't need you in this planet. If that's your contribution, bye. We don't need you. And if you say he's contributing other things and you don't know it, see isn't. It's you and me talking here. See isn't. I've had enough with this. So he started saying, how can you say that? She's your mother. Whoever curses their mother curses themselves. I said, someone else cursed me and this person is my mother. Like, I'm going to fight narcissism. And no matter what happens, it's not going to make me like her. I'm not going to like go down without a fight. So I shared this video because I want to empower people to do the same. No matter how difficult your circumstances are, even if you're going to become a horrible person, I was so close. In some ways, I am a horrible person. But even if that's the case, at least make sure you are the horrible person you chose to become and not just reactive to other people's abuse. And sometimes it's even okay to be reactive. It's a state that sometimes we have to go through, I think. But you shouldn't just be reactive. You should also be proactive, which means making your own choices. So I don't know where this is going to have to go. I know that there are many people who hate me who are going to be very happy with this video. I truly think that these people should have my cares to pay. I don't care if you're spiritual or not. Whoever hates me, I will curse them. Like, to have the same thing happening to them, to see if they have time to hate on YouTube and to write comments. And I also thought I shouldn't let fear hold me back, because at some point I was concerned when I first came out of the hospital and I was 42 kg and I was in a very fragile mental state. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to share that, and this awful person and possibly other stalkers of mixed race would just find a way to contact me and harass me. And then I said, what are you going to do? I told myself, are you going to be hiding for the rest of your life out of fear that these people will harass you? Are you going to leave YouTube? Are you going to not share what happened to you because people who hate you are going to be happy? Fuck no. I don't have anything to hide. If anything, I'm going to be oversharing 10 times more now. I never thought I could be making a video talking about diarrhea or colon removals or cursing someone to be hit by a meteorite, but here we are. So I want to say that the most important reason why I shared this video is, first of all, the people who pay me, the people who support me, deserve to know why all of a sudden I dropped off the face of the earth. I had my electronics taken and it was my fault. And then I was dying. It was also mainly my fault. And the second reason is, please, prevention. I could have escaped so much of that if I knew that she had the autoimmune and just went to do the damn colonoscopy. And if you are going to say, well, how could you have known? I still blame myself, because if you see all of the routine checkups, colonoscopy is among them. And I didn't do it because I was thinking, I'm healthy, I'm like young, I don't need to do that. So then I had to pay the price to learn. So now I'm going to be very vigilant. And also I want to tell you that as a last advice, and this advice I think I'm qualified to give despite being not being a doctor, that taking care of yourself the previous years does pay off when you really need it. Because when the fluid was reaching my lungs rapidly and filling them up, the reason why I really didn't die and I really didn't end up in huge trouble is that my heart was indeed strong from all of the workouts, the exercise, and the healthy eating, and the fact that I didn't smoke, like I've never smoked a single cigarette in my life, that my heart was able to keep up despite the tremendous pain that I felt, and despite the low oxygen, it was still beating. So I don't know what kind of health condition are you in today. Please take my advice. If you watch me and if you are a fan especially, I care for all of my fans. Try to stop smoking and try to take care of yourself today, baby steps, because you never know when you are going to need it. That I never thought that I'm going to be in this condition, and it was the previous years and the previous steps that I took for self-care that really literally kept me alive. And the reasons that I did self-care back then, when I was, let's say, 18 or 19, and I would run 5 miles, or I wouldn't smoke, or I would leave a party if people offered drugs, it wasn't because I cared about myself. I loathed myself. I hated myself. I was thinking that I'm just autistic, that my mother had told me 3 million times, literally, that no one will ever love me, that I was struggling, and I was really suffering every day. And I was running and I was eating healthy for very toxic reasons. I was doing that to piss her off. I was thinking, you're just a fat blob, you're just a binge eater, you bulimic pig, and I'm never going to be like you. I'm sorry for talking like that. I don't want to shame anyone, just sharing like raw what was going through in my mind, okay? No shame to anyone having an eating disorder or being overweight, none towards you. So I was thinking, you're always, even if you say that no one will love me, even if you say that I'm ugly, I'm always going to be thin in a healthy way and strong, and you're going to dissolve to an obese nothing, and let's see who will laugh then. And I know it sounds like pathetic now and deranged, but if I didn't have the anger to do all of these workouts and to cook and to eat healthy and to not eat junk, I wouldn't be alive today. So next time someone tells me anger isn't healthy and you need to have positive motivation and you need to not have negative motivation and you need to not have vengeful tendencies, I will show them the door. At the end of the day, the same way a good deed done for bad reasons is still a good deed. Like, for example, a rich person doing charity to avoid taxes. The people who got the charity still got the food, still got the equipment, whatever they needed. Taking care of yourself, even if you are revenge star, like when I was so deranged and so enraged and all that, it kept me alive today. So I'm never going to consider it a bad thing. So I'm telling you, maybe you need to find your own motivation to change your life. And even if that's negative according to the average NPCs in society, to the average brain-dead people, just don't tell them and still go for it. Because it really impressed me how people said, how did you have the self-discipline? It wasn't self-discipline, it was hatred that was driven me, hatred, anger, that I was wronged. That all of my life I was told I'm fat when I was never fat, that I was told that I'm ugly, that I will never amount to anything, that he dared to say to me I'm a parasite because I don't have 100,000 subscribers. When my subscribers increase month after month, like, do you know how long it takes to take 100,000 subscribers? I'm sorry I didn't explode my channel in 1 month. I realized with people like that, you could have 100,000 subscribers and then they would say, why don't you have 1 million? And you can have 1 million and then say, why aren't you like PewDiePie? And you could even be like PewDiePie and then they would find something else to complain about. So it's better to just erase them. Because I didn't tell him on the phone, I hate you, or you should die, or I'm going to go to the police. I said, you don't exist to me. And then he sent me money. That's how he lives his life. That, oh, your mother abused you. Your mother paid people to abuse you. But hey, your mother was a victim of generational abuse. And he even told me, your mother never objected to me sending you the money. So she must be a good person deep down. And they said, next time, please send me the menu. Sexual abuse, you pay this much, it goes away. Physical abuse, you pay this much, it goes away. Like, those victims who settle in court, that they accept money to keep their mouth shut about the abuse, I'm never going to judge them. But for me, I don't need hush money. I would much rather do OnlyFans and all of the other things people say if I need a lot of money, but I'm never going to accept hush money to say, oh, you're not going to talk about the abuse. So now I'm going to be talking about the abuse a lot more raw and open. And eventually one day someone is going to find her, someone is going to dox her, and everyone will know exactly what it is. It's not going to be me. I don't need to dox people, I don't need to commit any crimes, but I'm going to share things so raw as they happen that people will naturally want to find her. And then she's going to be 200 pounds. And then people are going to be asking her, oh, are you Vensta's mother? Are you the one who told her you won't have a colon? Ho, ho, ho. And she won't even know what hit you. Just wait. I'm sorry if I sound upset. Like, from time to time I get very upset when I remember that, because my mind still... There are some things that not only I would never say that to someone, it wouldn't even cross my mind as a thought, like laughing at someone at the possibility of them not having a colon. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to share with you. I don't know if this video helped anyone. It became a huge rambling. I'm sorry. I just wanted to share it one time with as many details as possible and get it over with. This is the last video on this unrelated to the channel topic. From now on, we're going to focus on the topics that I upload on different channels. So subscribe and share if you like it, and I'm looking forward to your comments. And last but not least, like I said earlier, people that I've explicitly told to politely, let's not be in contact, please don't be in contact. If you are in contact, I'm going to ignore you so bad that you'll doubt your own existence. Thank you for watching.